Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on their journey to publication. I'm Jamie Hirschberger, and I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian fantasy.
I'm Jennifer Girl, and I write Christian. Actually, you may see that we are down not one, but two hosts. Poor Jen is like under the weather in a bad way. All of the ways that you can say, feeling poorly, however you want to put it. That's what she is. So her health is front of mind. We really want her to get better soon. We're praying for her, and we know that our listeners will also pray for her. But at the same time, we are a hot mess today. Like, it's 10 o'clock, and Tina's like, what am I forgetting? I'm like, to go live? And she's like, it's time. We had to kind of like scramble to get everything together. And it's kind of a thin outline today. So it'll probably be kind of a short episode. We're really counting on our friends in the live chat to contribute. So if you're able to get over to your keyboard and type today, we'd really appreciate you. Isn't that true, Tina?
Yeah, and I'd like to apologize in advance just for everything. Especially if you listen to us on a podcast later. If I don't figure out how to do that properly, I'm sorry.
All right. Jason is already saying hello, everyone. Thanks, Jason, for tuning in. We appreciate you. And we do appreciate everybody who's tuning in live and everybody who will listen later, as Tina mentioned. Anywhere podcasts are available, you should be able to find the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. We do appreciate your encouragement and support. If you would please like and subscribe and spread the word. I like to say, if you like what we do, like and subscribe. If you don't like what we do, tell everybody you know how horrible we are, so they can come and find out for themselves. Right, Tina?
Exactly. And this would be a great episode for them to find out how horrible we are.
Teresa, good morning. She's in the chat, and we've got Catherine Carroll as well. What's up with everybody in the chat is what we normally do is we start with a segment called What's Up. We go around the virtual table, which is just across to one another today. Yeah. And we say, what's up? And we're not going to talk about the elephant in the room because that's our podcast topic. But you got something else to tell me? What's up, Bambina?
Well, I could take up the whole podcast talking about a certain someone that just came into the world.
Oh, I know. Tina was like, I never thought I would be that grandma. And Jen and I are both like, we knew you would be that grandma.
I'm that grandma. Like, you don't be my friend on Facebook if you don't want to see constant pictures of Eliana.
Well, who wouldn't want to see constant pictures? She's so freaking adorable.
She looks like a doll. Like, when you look at her, she looks like one of those dolls that are lifelike.
Don't set her down in that store in Frankenmuth. Someone might pick her up and try to buy her.
Yeah. And she's coming over today, and my daughter, and also Athena's coming over, and we're having a girls' night, and we're going to make ugly Christmas sweater cookies. And watch movies and probably White Christmas, although I'm not sure how thrilled Athena will be with that, but it's Amber's favorite Christmas movie. And we're going to make hot chocolate. And let's see, what else we're going to do. And Amber's going to spend the night with Eliana and all day tomorrow. And then tomorrow, when Adam gets done, he's going to quizzing meet. With their church.
That's Amber's husband. That's the grandbaby's daddy.
Adam is going to be gone all day, so when he gets back, he's coming over, and him and Amber are going on a date night. And guess who gets to babysit?
Oh, that's gonna be. I just can remember the little baby right here, just a nice little warm baby. Oh, that's gonna be so wonderful. Good for you, Grandma. That's the best.
And they smell so good. I was just like sniffing her, and I was like, and I was making very bad political jokes about it.
You need to make a candle with that scent, and you would be a bajillionaire.
Just like, all you'd have to do is take the baby wash and put
Oh, yeah.
probably make it say
Oh,
we
looky, our chat's blowing up. Piper says good morning or afternoon if we're talking to Miss
supposed to be
Maria.
showing these, aren't I?
Yes, yes. Shell says, hiya. Therese Thomas, what's up? Tomorrow is my birthday. Full.
Oh, happy birthday.
Wait, is that a birthday cake? I guess it's a birthday cake. I'm like, oh, she's going to get birthday pancakes. Happy birthday, Teresa. Piper also says happy birthday, and Jason's doing a birthday shout out. Wow. Do you have any plans for your birthday, Teresa? What were you saying, Tina?
Nothing. I was just saying happy birthday and talking over you like I like to do.
Oh, yeah, well, that's fine. Wait your turn because there's only 2 of us and there's an hour to fill.
I know.
Let's
It's
talk really
sometimes there's a
slowly.
little lag and then I think somebody's done and because there's a pause and then they're
Mhm.
not.
Yes, the wonders of technology.
Yeah.
Shell's also saying happy birthday to Teresa and giving her a little slice of cake. I will tell you my what's up. Oh my goodness, like what is not up? My world is changing dramatically today. It's really bizarre. So I talk about it a little bit on the podcast if you watch it all. 31 weeks ago, I enrolled in a Java development program, and Java is a computer language. So it was a coding course. And 31 long weeks ago, I signed up. I didn't really understand what I was getting myself into until they came back at me with sort of like the syllabus and the requirements. And it was basically a college level situation. It was 30 hours a week of study and very time consuming and brain consuming and everything consuming. But I'm happy to say that as of yesterday, I've presented my final capstone project and I am DONE done with my Java development course. So hooray, milestone checked off there. Also, for the past 10 weeks, I have been interning with Mullen Lowe with their strategy department out of Boston. And today is the last week of that 10-week momturnship. Isn't that a cool thing, Tina? They specifically targeted moms trying to re-enter the workforce. And
Nice.
they picked me, and I was really blessed to have a sneak peek inside the big advertising agency. It was really a cool experience. So that also is wrapping up today. And so my world is completely changing from being 2 jobs and school to being just waiting tables full time. And hopefully that means my creative brain or whatever will come back to me and I'll actually be able to write.
Yeah, that would be hard. I wouldn't be able to write with all that
My
stuff going on.
my writing sprint today was only 400 and something words. And I know that some people might be like, only 400 and something words.
Yeah, but for you, that's not
That's
much.
not much at all. And so I just sort of feel like a sponge that has been just wrung out. And I'm hoping that like my little shriveled self will kind of puff back up with some of this uh, burden taken off of me of always using my brain.
Yeah. Well, you have my respect because I tried to do a coding course, like I don't even know what it was called. It fried my brain so bad. But I gave up in tears about halfway through because my brain just does not work that way. And I
I
couldn't figure it
understand.
out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I appreciate too everybody is congratulating me in the comments. I really appreciate that. Oh, and Teresa says she's gonna do something, but she doesn't know what. Probably a date night. Maybe she'll run
Nice.
into Adam and Amber.
Yeah, they're going to the planetarium. They're having a Christmas show at the Longway Planetarium here in Flint.
Oh, that sounds so awesome. I just found out that a city near me, Ocala, has a symphony orchestra, and I was
Ooh,
kind of on the fence about going to their Pops concert tomorrow. It's like I kind of should, but it feels too last minute to be a good idea. But then on the other hand, why not? It's kind of a
yeah.
way to celebrate all of my momentous
And as much as you
occasions that are
love
happening.
music, you know it's gonna be good music.
I know, and it's been a really long time since I had the symphony experience, and what I like about it is feeling the sound. The
Mhm.
last time I went to see Les Mis, it was not a live orchestra situation, and it just was like, "Wah, wah," to me,
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm kind of talking myself into doing it.
The last show that we went to was the new, Willy Wonka play at the
Mm-hmm.
Whiting, and we had and it was my, husband's Christmas present last year,
Oh,
and I got, like, front row, so we were right on the orchestra.
nice.
So, yeah, it
Yeah.
was nice, and it was really good. They did a really good job with it. I really
Hmm.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, y'all, you're kind of talking me into it. All
Yeah.
right. Well, thanks everybody for the congratulations. We'd like to know what else is up with y'all. Excuse me in the comments, but we hope that you will be contributing today because, Tina, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about Nano, and we were gonna name it "Thank God It's Over," but since we really weren't doing it, like, I started out with great intentions knowing that it was probably gonna all be derailed
All right. Well,
by
hold
the
on
birth,
just a
but
moment. We'll get into that in a moment because you said today we're talking about nano. And if this happens to be the first episode you ever tune in, first of all, we usually have at least one more host and it's usually way better than this. But second of all, you may not know what that is. So, what is nano, Bambina?
Nano is short for well, it's actually NaNoWriMo is short for National Novel Writing Month. And
Mm-hmm.
every November, the challenge is to write 50,000 words within the 30 days of November. And if you do that, you win. And what you get for winning is a little certificate you can print off that says you won,
And you get
and a
some
bunch of
discounts.
discounts on
Mm-hmm.
on
So,
uh,
like, you can get
writerly type
Scrivener.
apps and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah,
You can get Scrivener for half off. You can get some really nice perks, and you get bragging rights, and you get hopefully a new writing habit, right, Tina?
yeah, and you get 50,000 words that you didn't have.
That's right. And we love to champion NaNoWriMo because this is how we all connected as a podcast, as a writing group originally. There were 7 of us. And excuse me, Tina and I went to a write in up in Michigan, our local write in. And from there, we met Rhonda and Jen and Rhonda's mom and daughter. And we all became a writing group called
And Vicky.
Flaws. And yeah, and then we from there turned into this podcast. So we are nanos from way back. In fact, I found out this is my 14th year participating. Isn't that
Wow,
bizarre? Mm-hmm.
that is bizarre.
So we're going to talk about each of our experiences, and we really hope that those of you in the chat will share your experiences. Jen, let's start with you. Tell us your nano story for 2022. That's what the outline says, Tina. I'm just following the outline.
Well,
Um,
I can tell you that, and I'm gonna show you guys in a little bit the graph I made of everybody's progress. And Jen was like, "Can you take me off of the graph?" Because she has one dot
oh
on the
dear.
graph of her progress. So she's had a tough month, and I think she's still grieving. So
Yeah.
that makes it hard.
Yeah. So what is your nano experience? You started a little bit telling us what was going on.
Yeah, I sorry I jumped ahead, but I started out strong, and I was getting good words in
Mm.
for 3 days. And then no, wasn't even 3 days, it was 2 days, because Eliana was scheduled to be brought Amber was scheduled to be induced on the 11th of November. So I thought, "Good, I have 10 days I can really get some good word counts." Well, Amber went for her appointment on the 3rd, and her blood pressure was up, and they were like, "Nope, today. We're inducing you
Today.
today."
Wow.
So on that was on the 3rd, and Eliana came into the world on the 4th at 12:51 a.m.
That's
So,
so
and then
sweet.
I spent 3 days in the hospital with Amber because of her blood pressure, they had to give her something called magnesium sulfate, and when you have that, you have to be on it for 24 hours, and for that 24 hours, you cannot get out of bed. It's 24 hours from the moment of birth, so she was on it for several hours while she was in labor,
Mm,
couldn't get out of bed, and then she couldn't get out of bed for 24 hours after the moment of birth. So
mm,
so Adam and I stayed with her. I had the night shift, Adam had the day shift.
Mhm.
I slept during the day. And then we took care of the baby because she didn't want to put her in the nursery. She wanted to keep her in the room. And then we would just hand her the baby when it was time to feed because she's nursing. So, and then her 24-hour point was up at 12:51 a.m.
Mhm.
At which point they a bunch of people came in and did a bunch of stuff, and then they kicked us. We were still on the labor and delivery floor, and now we had to move at 2 in the morning downstairs to the maternity
Wow.
floor.
Yeah.
And then by the time that they got anyway, I'm like off on a rabbit trail. So
As
3
you're
days.
just grandma-ing.
I
You're just
am sorry. Like, so then I got home and my daughter was, she's a first time mom. And so I ended up going to her house for 3 or 4 days after she went home to help her out.
So that would put us at about the 8th or ninth.
Yeah, and by
Yeah.
that
So
time
when
I
were
was
you getting words? So your words were only the 1st through the 3rd.
well, I didn't even write on the 3rd because I
Ah,
was sitting down to write on the 3rd when she
yeah.
called me.
Yeah.
And so I got some words throughout the month, but there were so many days where she had a little bit of the baby blues, and she's very social, she's an extrovert,
Mhm.
and she didn't want to take her baby out in public because it's RSV season.
Yeah, it's a tiny
So
baby.
so I was either going over there, she was coming over here. So it was just a lot of interruptions, and so then I don't know, I'll show you the graph in a little bit and you'll see where I just stopped. I just gave up.
Well, and for those of you who don't know, well, I mean, you obviously could sit there and do the math, but 50,000 words in 30 days is no joke. And so if you get behind even one day, well, now you have to have a day where you do at least 3,000 words or you can't catch up. And
Right.
so to kind of miss a whole week will sort of take the wind out of anybody's sails. And it's a really difficult thing to climb back up on that horse after you get knocked down so profoundly. Isn't that true, Tina?
Yeah, and then on top of all that, I had paid for the 20 books conference, and
Oh, yeah.
it was virtual. I originally was going to go, but then baby, I found out
Yeah.
my daughter was pregnant a month after I paid for the conference.
Mhm, mhm.
So they transferred my ticket to virtual. And so I took all this time to watch the live um streams of the conference. I didn't feel like I could. I mean, it was recorded to watch later, but I paid this money.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like I could not do it. So I did it. So then I was just even further behind. But well, that's a discussion for next week. So
Mhm. Yep. So yeah, tune in next week because Tina will be talking about a lot of the stuff that she gleaned from the 20 Bucks conference. And we
and
know
why
that
it just
Piper.
stopped me dead in my tracks, and I was like,
Mm.
okay, I'm not writing.
Ooh,
So
cliffhanger.
yeah,
Mm. Hmm.
that'll bring you back next week. Why did Tina stop writing? Not
All
permanent,
right.
not
Yeah.
permanently. Let's say.
Well, not seeing any chat in the chat room there. I don't see Maria joining us today, but I just want to give a shout out to Maria Johnson because I know for sure that Maria did win National Novel Writing Month. So congratulations to her. I'm not sure how Teresa ended up for the month.
Well, do you want me
And
to share the graph and we can see, and then you can share your?
yeah, sure.
Let me see here. I am not sure how. Oh, I already had it. There we go. I'm gonna put it big like this. Okay, so here's the little thing I made on you know, that green sheets. I'm trying to scroll on the StreamYard page.
Yeah, is
I have
there a
to go
total
to
column?
Yes, there is, and I was trying to scroll it, but I was still on the StreamYard page, and I couldn't
Oh, we got
understand.
a couple of 50,000
Yep. So
gold
we have
crystal
Joe
and
and Katie and
Katie.
Crystal. Congratulations
Yay!
to them. They got 50,000 words. Teresa was so close. 38,590. That is impressive.
Yeah,
She had a lot of
absolutely.
stuff going on this month too. So,
Well, and I happen to know that this for Teresa is going to be probably closer to publishable than a lot of people's nano projects, because I believe that she was really doing a lot of crafting, which is going to take a little bit more effort than just shutting off the inner editor and blabbing
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. She
Congrats to
was
all of
working on
you
a
all. And
previous.
even Jennifer and even Tina, your 15,000 is going to serve you well.
Oh, and as the group, we wrote, where is it? Oh, what happened to the group total? Oh, there it is. 204,786 words.
That's
And here's
amazing.
my little graph that I made. I love this thing. And if I can just get it to scroll down. Isn't that
Oh my
pretty?
gosh. It looks like a hurricane spaghetti model.
So like you can see this blue line is me. You can see where it just abruptly stopped right there. There's Jennifer's little red dot. But look at all these high peaks. Almost 4,000 words on this day for
Gosh.
Teresa.
Yeah.
And look at Katie.
Wow. She really pulled it out in
4,000.
the end, right?
Oh my gosh. And yeah, everyone just did a great job. And Joe even, had some over several 1, 2, 3, 4 days over 3,000.
Well, I do have to say, Shell is shouting out some congratulations in the chat. Catherine Carroll is saying congrats, everyone. Piper says she did not attempt nano because she knows from past experience I would not get it done. November is a horrible month to do this experiment. Yeah, it's really interesting. I kind of wonder why November was kind of picked by the original people, especially because I know that like people in college have finals and stuff like that that they're preparing for. It's really interesting that they picked November. Teresa says she was wondering how to copy and paste her Instagram post about Nano. Did you end up winning, Teresa? Jason says he got 35,000 words. He hoped he would be able to make it this year, but guess not. Jason, 35,000 is not small potatoes. Good job
No,
for
it's
you.
not. It's a good.
Oh, Teresa says she was writing in the sprint room with Katie when she won, and it was so exciting. I
Nice.
bet. Congrats, Katie. That's so great. Catherine says, Piper, I agree. November is one of the worst months for it. And then we got Shell telling Jason, good job. Yeah, Jason, don't despise small beginnings, which is not a small beginning. 35,000 words is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Piper says it was college guys who created it, so nobody needed to cook a turkey dinner or worry about getting ready for a holiday. Oh, that's hilarious. Teresa says, no, the graph is right. All right, Teresa. Well, you know what? You got a lot of words in November.
Yeah.
That's
A lot more than I
amazing.
did. And probably going to rewrite the ones that I wrote. So there we go.
All right. So let me tell you a little story. I have a very crazy life. And so it was like, well, I don't know if I want to do NaNoWriMo or not, but I was going to have massive FOMO because there were going to be these sprint rooms and people from the podcast were going to be like meeting up to do writing sprints. And if I wasn't showing up to do a writing sprint for NaNoWriMo, I would have no business being in the room with the people. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll write something. And so I showed up to our kickoff with zero idea of what I would write at all if I were to undertake NaNoWriMo. But again, I didn't want to miss out on hanging out with Tina and Teresa. So I was like, I'm going to the NaNoWriMo kickoff party. And then as midnight approached, I suddenly said, oh no, I know what I'm going to write. And Tina and Teresa are like, that is the strangest announcement that you know what you are going to write ever for National Novel Writing Month. And the reason is because the concept of what I want to write is like the great American novel. Like, I mean, it's really hard to do what I want to do well. And so it's like, I didn't really think I wanted to try to conquer that as a NaNoWriMo project because I want it to be good. Do you know what I mean? And so
Mm-hmm.
you kind of don't want to spoil an ideal by writing it. Does that make sense, Tina?
It does. And
You
you don't
have
want to just vomit words if you want something to be wonderful. You know what I mean? Because that's like, I tried to be a complete pantser, but I realized that revision kills me.
Mm.
Revision makes me wanna stab my eyes out with a sharp fork or a butter knife, whatever has handy. And so I need to figure out how to write clean, and I can't do that pantsing. Or yeah, pantsing.
So
So
I wrote a sprint at midnight, and going back to read it, I don't hate what I wrote at midnight on the first day, but it was not the Great American Novel. It was like the first 5 minutes of like a sitcom or maybe a melodramatic My So-Called Teenage Life episode or something like that. And I was like, this is terrible. This is awful. But now I've committed myself to NaNoWriMo, and I have this weird thing where if I say I'm going to do something, I like have to do it, you know? And so I'm like, well, I have to write 50,000 words. So I spent the next 30 days transcribing whatever I was hearing on the radio, sometimes writing my story, sometimes writing, now, what is this story really going to be about? Sometimes writing, what am I even going to name these people? Oh, yeah, I decided I might name them this and that. And what's really interesting is I discovered that I write much faster from my own brain than I write transcribing what I'm hearing in the room. Isn't that bizarre?
that is interesting.
I would like for everybody else to perform that experiment and see how they do. But
I need to go
anyway,
find the research to why that is.
I was gutted sometimes looking at the computer and knowing that I really should not go to bed without writing, because I would get like a day behind and then I would have to write like 3,000 words. Like, why did I commit to writing these words? And then I'm like, does this even count? Because I'm really not writing a novel. I am just writing 1,667 words of any kind. And then I would look down and notice that my fingers had been in the wrong key spots. And so some of what I wrote was like, and nobody even knows what it was. But at the end of the day, I wrote 50,000 words in November. Now, I didn't put it on the chart because I couldn't figure out what to do, because the first day I wrote, and then maybe it was a day or two that I did it, and then I had this big word count, but I didn't know how many I wrote each day. And so to kind of keep track of what I wrote every day, like I didn't want to have one day where I wrote 8,000 words. So it like the chart was like meh. And then I didn't really realize it was going to be like made a public thing and all of that too, or I might have tried to kind of keep up with it.
Okay.
But the good news is that I feel like it at least kept me thinking about the fact that I am a writer. Someday I will write this book. And your point about the revisioning, Tina, this is something that we should talk about a little bit more when we're going to talk about process, because I realized that it was good for me to be doing this with no expectations of it being great. Because what would happen is then, as I was working my restaurant job, more ideas would come to me, and I realized that this one story that I had that wasn't enough to be a novel possibly was the beginning of this piece, and the piece kind of like came together more over the course of this month. And so when I am ready to tackle it, I feel like this is not a first draft of that story. This is very much a brain dump of just whatever. Sometimes it was like venting about my life because my personal life is shipwrecked and I'm just like, you know. So I don't even know. What do you all think of a nano that is like that?
I mean, I think they didn't say you had to write a novel. It is National Novel Writing Month, but it
Yeah.
doesn't say anything in the rules about what you have to write.
Yeah.
And they have this whole thing where you can make up your own rules. So
yeah, see, because this is what Piper says. Jamie, that is too funny that you would count words that don't propel a story forward. It's so funny because, yes, some people do. Tina counted a text that she sent.
I did.
That is words that you
It was
wrote in
about my
November.
story. So here you go. Okay, so I'm gonna have you read that because I don't have my glasses.
Teresa says, other wins, almost 40,000 words. She met Katie and got to know some others better. Yeah, those are big wins, Teresa, for sure. She kept coming back and showing up to do the work. Yes, absolutely. All month long. Did not give up when I knew I wouldn't hit my original and part 2 is a few down, Tina. So she didn't give up when she knew she wouldn't hit her original goals. It's up higher than that, like 4
Oh,
more.
I'm sorry.
She
There we go.
adjusted and made new goals and stayed with it. The biggest win of all is that I grew closer to the Lord from showing up to work on my craft.
That's awesome.
Yay! Yeah, that's great because your gifts are gifts and it's nice to be thankful for them. That's awesome.
Hmm.
All right. Piper says, that's fascinating that such words would help propel your thoughts, though. I think it sounds like it was beneficial for you to do that way, whether anyone else would have or not. I guess so. I mean, in my mind, it's 50,000 words. And the reason why I feel that way is because when I first came to NaNoWriMo, I was a brand new writer and really thinking I was going to do this NaNoWriMo project and then sell it for big money. But they were huge on locking up your inner editor and throwing away the key. They were like, do not let your editor say anything about the words that you are writing. Just put the words on the paper. Like, huge. That was the one message that I had. And so I was like, okay. And I sat down and I wrote. But back then it was like, and then a dragon appeared, and then the dragon ate the gnome. Where did the gnome come from? Anyway, now the writer doesn't know. Like, so I was still trying to stay in the story, sort of, but just typing whatever came to mind. And so the practice of throwing away the inner editor just got me to realize that this first draft was probably going to need to be heavily revised. And so if that's the case, what difference did it make what the words were? Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of liberated me to just have the habit, I guess, of writing the almost 2,000 words, which, yeah, again, shriveled sponge over here. Shriveled sponge.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't do that with turning off the inner editor. I have to turn it on and turn on the writer at this. They need to be like tandem. And I've been doing the thing where I write like 400 words and go back. Some people call it churning, some people call it cycling. One guy, I think the guy who wrote Writing into the Dark calls it cycling. So like 400 words, go back, read it, revise, write another 400 words, and then I just keep doing that. And it's so much better.
Teresa says zero draft at its finest. Yep, that's exactly right. Because guess what? I'm pretty sure I know what my main character's name is, though, although I keep wanting it to be this other thing, but I'm like, no, that's not it. It's this. And so it's either this or this, which is way farther than I was before I wrote. And plus, I have some key scenes that I know are in there. And so I almost feel like the story is being revealed to me. Maybe it's like an advent calendar. I don't know. But I keep thinking more like, I don't know, you're taking a cloth and you're polishing away at something and then it reveals itself. And the process of thinking about it. And the problem is, if you can't make a decision and you're sitting there and it's time to write your 2,000 words, it does not matter. It is time to write your 2,000 words. So when you cannot make a decision, write something else. Like, I do not know what I'm going to name this person. I wonder what I will have for lunch tomorrow. Oh, yes, I'm supposed to be writing a story. I don't know. That was what the process was like for me. So count it or don't count it. I don't feel like I deserve the accolades that somebody does who actually has a workable first draft. But I did write 50,000 words.
Well, congratulations. And I say
thanks.
it counts.
I
Because
appreciate
it's
that.
part of your creative process is writing that I don't know what I want to have for lunch today.
Yeah.
Like if that's part of your creative process and it helps you develop your story, then it counts.
I do wonder if for me personally, if it's just the act of actually writing almost 2,000 words every day. There was a period of time when I was committed to writing at least 500 words a day. I told myself, you're going to write 500 words a day. And I did it for quite a long time. But I really do not like to make commitments that never end. Because
Yeah.
I feel like, are you willing to do this for the rest of your life? No. Then, so I should have given myself an end date because now I feel bad kind of just leaving that. Why did you ever stop? Why did you ever stop writing 500 words every day? And I think the daily writing habit might be good for my process, possibly.
I know this guy who is he's drafting a book and he's a heavy plotter, so he has this real detailed plot, but he gave himself 60 days to write so many words. So it's almost like a nano kind of situation where
Mm-hmm.
he said, okay, this is the date that I want to have this many words written by. And so then he figured out how many words he has to write a day. So it was like a smaller goal than I'm going to write 500 words a day, which is kind of open ended. And
I almost wonder if I am perhaps an extreme plotter who plots by pantsing.
it could be.
Do you know what I mean?
I know
Because
exactly what you mean.
I really feel like I don't want to write it until I know what it's going to be, but I don't write it down necessarily.
Yeah.
But I don't even
I
know.
do a lot of plotting in my head before I ever put anything on paper.
Yeah.
And then I'll
Hmm.
and I'll like imagine a scene, like almost like daydream it, and then I'll be like, nope,
Yeah.
and I'll
Yeah.
scrap it and I'll start over. So that's why I always joke that I can edit a blank page
Yeah.
because I do
Yeah.
that a lot. You know, I took the James Patterson master class one
Hmm.
time, and he writes out the way he plots is he has a notebook, and he just free writes all his ideas for each chapter,
Yeah.
like a summary as he's thinking about it. And then he double spaces it so he can add stuff in between when he goes back over it and goes, no, I'm going to change that. And so he kind of does this like writing about writing thing before he ever sits down to actually write the manuscript.
That makes sense. Teresa is first of all impressed that I did. Okay, that's very nice. Thank you. And thank you, Piper. I really appreciate it. If he, I mean, I really want to just be like, I did do something because it was really super duper hard. But I do not feel comfortable being like, oh, I wrote a novel. I really kind of didn't. But I did honor my commitment. Teresa says, what if on the first of every month you determined a manageable goal for that month? That's not a bad way to approach it. That's really not. That's a pretty good idea because if I just made every month like a nano month, yeah, that's not a bad way to approach it, Teresa. I appreciate that. All right. And so the plan for today was for us to each discuss our NaNoWriMo 2022, how that went and what that was all about. Did we get everybody in the chat? Do we know how everybody did? We had some who were like, nope, not doing it in November. No way.
Yeah. And the only two people that weren't on the chart were you and Jason said he got 35,000 words, I think.
Good job,
So
Jason. Wow. Yeah.
a lot of successes, a lot of them.
Well, and I really hope that at the end of the day, everybody will just take some time to acknowledge the fact that they really did something, and it's
Hmm. And even those that didn't do it did something.
yeah,
They had wins
absolutely.
too. I know the
Hmm.
two of them that didn't do it went to 20 bucks and they had lots of wins there. So Piper had something to say here.
She says, I did do something like writing about writing. Oh, I do something like the writing about writing when I'm stuck about my story. I'll write a couple of pages of this has to happen and this and what about this? Can I do that thing? Remember to do. Yes. And that's what NaNoWriMo does is it forces me to actually write those things instead of just thinking it in my head. Right.
Yeah.
And but seriously, when I was actually writing a scene, Tina, no joke, the words came faster. It was really bizarre.
Yeah.
Really bizarre. Like
I
this
think it's
happens, then
because
this happens was not as fast.
I think it's because
Weird.
that part of your brain that where you learn to ride the bike, you just do it. Like you're
Yeah,
not when you're riding a bike now, you're not consciously thinking about how to ride the bike. You're just
right.
doing it. And I think that you've trained that part of your brain to write. And
It must
so
be.
you don't have to think about how to do it. It just happens.
I think
That's my theory.
yeah, I'm going to have prompts or something for next year just in case for when I get stuck about my actual book. Maybe that's
Yeah.
what plotting can be for me. All right,
Hmm.
Teresa says, like for me, 500 sounds perfect for December. Yeah. I've been worried about just abandoning altogether. No. But December is worse than November. So maybe I'll establish that goal for weekdays that aren't holidays in December. Oh, I thought you meant 500 total. Because if you get 500
Hey,
total in December, of all seasons, especially because I know your job is like ministry related, blah, 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 then you are rocking. Don't you agree, Tina? Like,
Yeah, and
yee.
any words is words.
Yeah, I mean, you could have visit your project like Becca Symes does. Did you open your project? And maybe you could
Mhm.
have a time that you commit. So it isn't a number of words, but it's, I'm going to commit this hour or half hour
Yeah, if you
every
go
day.
and they have like a 2 for 30 challenge. Like if you join the Discord, there's a challenge 2 for 30. Open your manuscript for 2 minutes a day for 30 days in a row, and you win you win something at the end. And then if you do the 30 for 30, or it's the manuscript time blocks. If you do 100 manuscript time blocks, it's just 30 minutes at a time, and you do 100 for the month, you get your name in a drawing for a free one-on-one coaching.
Nice. And those
So
are
that
great.
and that's a nice prize to get. To like sometimes that motivates me when I just don't feel like it. I'm like, yeah, but I could get a hour of one-on-one coaching. So I just keep going. I haven't
Yeah.
won yet, but someday.
Piper thinks that 500 words a day sounds great, or no, monthly commitments are great. She could use that method to set a goal for herself too. Yeah, Piper, agree. Catherine Carroll says when she's stuck, she talks about it into her voice recorder. Eventually she gets all the what ifs sorted out, and sometimes it leads me to dictating scenes. And then Teresa wants to know whose Discord is that, Tina?
It's it's marked. It's either Write Better Faster or Strengths for Writers. I don't know. I'll get you the information. I'll look it up and I'll
Put
get
it
it
in
to
our
you later.
Facebook group, Tina. Why
Yeah.
not plug our Facebook group?
Yeah, and you know what I was thinking? Why
What?
not leave that sprint room open
Yeah.
in the group? Because just because it's not nano doesn't mean people won't want to sprint. And if people want to sprint, they can go in there
Mm-hmm.
and just like say something in the group and say, anyone want to sprint? I'm going in the room. So, and I get notifications when somebody goes in the room. And I don't know if that's because I set up the room or if other people are getting those notifications too.
I see stuff come up, but I don't know because like it's intermittent and haphazard. I always have something going on, but
Yeah.
hopefully
So like
you'll be seeing a lot more engagement from me too now that life is settling down a little
it's not
bit.
like you've been busy or anything.
Well, we really, really appreciate all of you all for tuning in to celebrate. Thank God it's over. Nano is over. We're going to move on now to the feeding of the backs. The what? Well, this is where we give each other positive feedback only. Why? Well, because we're going to be critiquing, not really. We're going to be complimenting a piece of writing that we do just before we go live. And we don't take any time to edit it or proofread it or nothing. And so we're only complimentary during this time. And when we had our writing group and someone would get feedback on a piece, I would always move on to the next person. But first, I would check to make sure, Susie Q, is your back well fed? Did you get enough feedback? And allow her to say yes before we moved on to the next person, just because I'm so polite like that. Anyway, you ready to have your back fed, Miss Tina?
Sure.
Share
You want
the
me to go
writing
first?
prompt. Yes, please. Share the
Okay.
writing
And
prompt.
don't have my glasses, so
Oh,
let's see if I can make this bigger. No, I can't. Cuz Chrome wants to update and I ain't pushing that button.
well, Teresa, just before you start, Teresa says Katie and she talked about continuing to meet that way at least a few times a month. The room was so nice, so grateful you all started it for the month. And Teresa, you and Katie kept it going. I mean, I
Yeah.
have to say, you guys were really the ones. I'm so glad that you're able to celebrate with us today, Teresa, because you've really become a very vital part of our group and we appreciate you. And same thing with you, Katie, wherever you are. I think
Yep.
she's teaching a class somewhere, maybe.
Could be. Okay, so these words did not inspire me at all, so I just did something else. So you won't find any of the words
Oh dear.
unless it's an accident.
What were the words?
Oh, I'm sorry. Flag, reproduce, cheat, testify, and spare were
Oh,
the
there's
five.
some winners. No wonder.
Yeah. Okay. The wind howling through the bare branches of the forest sent a shiver down Tara's spine. She pulled her parka hood up to block most of it and continued. to climb the upward slope, blocking her view of the snow-capped peak she was ascending toward. Flakes of dry powder danced in the wind. Whether they were falling from the sky or being blown up by the wind was hard to tell. A wolf howled in the distance, its call immediately answered by several others. Tara lifted her torch higher. Did I just change her name? Oh no. Spinning slowly to gauge her surroundings. The frozen lake far below was the only landmark visible. If she were an eagle, she would take flight and soar high above the icy world below. She would fly south where there promised to be warmer days and nights on a beach under the stars. Imagining the warmth of the sun did little to stop the chill that ran up her spine as the wolves called again. Were they getting closer? It was tempting to quicken her pace, but Tara knew better. It was far worse to be tired out than to take longer to get up the mountain. The hard part of the journey was still ahead of her, where the steep slope turned into sheer cliffs covered in ice. You should turn back. Tara dismissed the thought as quickly as it came. There was no turning back for her. Her heart, her life, her soul was on the other side of this mountain, and even if she died in the attempt, she would never turn back. Her heart ached at the thought of her son. Her arms protested their emptiness. She swiped at her eyes with fuzzy wool mittens which tickled her nose. Hurry. Tara quickened her pace just a little, the wind blowing against her back as if to help her. The cracking of a branch from behind her stopped Tara in 3, 2, 1.
Oh no! Not at the cracking of the branch behind her. Oh wait, positive only. Well, that is positive because I want to know.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, I didn't know what was on the other side of the mountain till the end, you can tell, because, like, if she was an eagle, she'd fly to the beach. No, that's not where she'd fly. She'd fly to her son, but I didn't know that until I got down to the end.
Well, what's really interesting to me was that when she had an internal thought, the internal thought told her you and not I. Now, I know you're just sprinting, but did you at all, is that just what came out? Or did you put any thought into that? Just curious.
I didn't put any thought into it. Like, I'm not even sure what you're
Hmm.
talking about.
Well, you had her say you should turn back to herself.
Oh,
And
I
then it was,
did.
and it was an internal thought. And so the fact that it was like a condemning, sort of like intrusive voice, and it wasn't like, I should turn back. You know what I mean?
Right.
I
It's
really
just
think that's
almost like
interesting.
the little red devil sitting on her shoulder,
I know. And what's
talking to her. Yeah, that's
okay,
kind of how I imagined it, but not on
y'all, like,
purpose.
I think a lot about this stuff. Like, if you sing silently in your head the ABC song,
Mhm.
are you the singer or the listener?
Mm.
So I think about this kind of stuff a lot, right? And so for me to think about, when I think to myself, negative or positive, do I think, I should really go to the store? Or do I think, you should really go to the store? Like, I really wonder, like, I'm going to pay
Mhm.
more attention in the future.
Right, our inner dialogue, like, what are? Because sometimes it's like, if you had somebody growing up who was always criticizing, like, it's almost like you can hear their voice.
It's like their voice talking to
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
You do everything half-butted, although they didn't say but.
I'm sure. Oh, Shell says, so much great description, Tina. She could feel the wind pushing her along. And Piper wrote, you write about turmoil so well, Tina. Tina Turmoil.
Turmoil
Tumultuous
Tina
Tina.
sounds better, like, that's my superhero name now.
Turmoil.
Turmoil Tina.
Yeah, said in a really deep voice, and then you show up and things
Yeah.
go crazy. All right. Well, I wanted you to go first because I knew it would be great, but sadly now I have to follow it, and I'm not really happy with what I wrote today. Again, shriveled sponge, and so this is
Mhm.
what came out. We have the prompts again. Like Tina said, I wasn't really inspired, but the word flag was the first word, and 3, 2, 1, go. This is what came out. They always wanted me to stand and salute the flag. I did it, but I didn't feel nothing about it. I tried. I sat and listened to the teachers lecture, and I endured the fiery speeches of the pastors, but I didn't feel nothing when I stood. And even later, when the required gesture changed, when I removed my cap to cover my heart with it, I suppose it came from years of feeling too much, maybe. At least I never got angry or turned my back on the country that was represented by that banner of red and white and blue. I mean, I got angry, all right. Angry that my buddies died and angry that so many little kids grew up without daddies. I mean, I was angry at the people who did the killing, though, not mad at the flag or country or whatever. It only ends up being an ideal, after all, a notion, right and wrong. And to have something you believe in enough to die for is more than I can ever say I'll have, even though I lined up right next to them and took up arms just like they did. I was never fighting for nothing. Nothing but what I thought was more money than I'd ever see working alongside my father back at home. And I guess when it gets right down to it, I wasn't angry at the people who did the killing either. I mean, to care about something so much you'd be willing to kill to preserve it, an idea, a notion, some concept of what is right or wrong, to be so sure you know, sure enough to kill over it. How does one get that kind of faith? Are you born with it? Does everyone have it except for yahoos like me? Is there something missing inside me? In all my years, I thought it was them that was wrong. Crazy, I'd call them. The kids I read about what threw themselves on grenades or ran out under heavy fire to save a buddy. I mean, I ran out under heavy fire, got a medal for it and all, but we was all going, and I wasn't going to be the one that didn't go. That's all I cared about looking back, the way I'd look, you know. Not that I wanted to have a bunch of medals to display or sit in cars waving at parades, but I wasn't going to be the only guy who didn't go. And I wasn't going to be the only guy who didn't salute. Still won't be. And that's all I have to say about that.
Wow. You say you don't like it, but that was so good.
It was.
Yes, because I can feel this guy's like apathy, and then like, is there something wrong with me because I have this app? Like, I feel like this guy is real.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah, I feel like he could be. You could write like one of those war stories where you have like the one guy who's just like, not passionate and not. Then he ends up being the hero in the end. That would be cool.
I appreciate it. And I'm glad that you say that because, like, to me, okay, I wrote this, right?
Hmm.
And then this person might show up somewhere else, but this won't be in there. But the guy will be real enough to me to write him, I feel like.
Hmm.
I feel like this was like an interview with a character who would be somewhere in a story somewhere sometime. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because
Because
haven't
it,
we all met somebody like that where they just don't want to be left behind, but they're not real excited about going either?
yeah. And I feel like I don't like it as far as like, oh, I think it should be published and read by the masses, but I like what it taught me and I like what I learned about him through it. So, yeah, I guess it was obviously worth doing. And this is why it's never a waste to take some time and write, correct?
Yep, exactly.
Piper says, wow, Jamie, you might not be happy with this, but I think it is amazing. And that is just 400-ish words. Wow. Yes, it is 400 and I don't remember, 34, something like that. I appreciate that. Shell says, that was great, Jamie. I love that kind of inner dialogue. It's one thing writing does that movies can't do. Yeah, you're right. That's what I love about reading stories. Yes. And yes, you are
That's
so
why the
right.
book is always better,
Mm-hmm.
because they can't do that in a movie.
Yeah, and actors and actresses try so hard, but when you're imagine being a really cerebral book character and now you have to portray that in a film. So what do you do with your face? Just like because
Well,
everybody who read the book knows that you're thinking about but people who didn't read the book are just like, why does that guy say something or
yeah.
emote?
And even if they did it perfectly, they have done functional MRIs on people's brains while they're reading. And so, like, if you're reading about somebody riding a bike and the person is an immersive writer, you're the part of your brain that lights up when you're riding a bike will light up. So in your brain, you are the character riding the bike, riding the horse, fighting the battle, feeling the feelings. Like your brain is lighting up in all those places. And you can't do that
Wow.
with a movie.
That's crazy to have that kind of power.
Yeah. At
Wow.
our fingertips.
Awesome.
Let me see what I
Well,
can do to you today.
right? Let's go on a trip.
Yeah.
Tina, we are at the time of the podcast where we talk about what's next. So everybody in the chat, if you want to let us know what's next, now that NaNoWriMo is over, how are you guys? I mean, we're all coming into the holidays, so I'm sure there's lots of holly jolly and stuff. Piper wants to know how they did the MRI of the person riding a bike to know which part of the brain lit up.
It was probably a stationary bike. I don't know. There's a
That's
part of
what
your
Shell said
brain.
too.
I think it's called the amygdala or something like that.
Amygdala.
Yeah, it's anything that you have learned that's like playing the violin, playing the guitar, playing the flute, riding a bike, all those kind of things that you learn, and then you just do them without thinking, but your brain's thinking about it. It's just doing it in the background. Like that's probably the part of the brain that lit up. And I don't know how they did it, but they've done functional MRIs of people writing and people reading. It's
Joy
pretty
is
crazy.
everywhere. Amygdala. And then also light up the sky keeps going through my head too, because of you talking about lighting up the brain. Oh dear, Jamie
Well, life
Jukebox.
is a musical, you know.
Yes, absolutely.
It
Especially
is.
if you live with me. Tina, what's next for you besides baby snuggles and cuddles coming up this weekend?
Well, I have taken a step back and I'm doing some rethinking about my current work in progress.
Ooh, and you
And
can't tell us too
I
much because
can't
of
really
next
tell you
week,
too
right?
much because that's what I'm talking about next week.
Mm.
And it was huge. Like I
Wow.
learned something I'd never heard of before. And when I looked at my manuscript, it was loaded with this thing that you're not that
Wow.
takes your reader out of the story. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And I
Wow.
can't go forward until I fix it. So that's a
Fascinating.
total what do you call it? Teaser for next week.
Yes, tune in next week when Tina reveals the thou shalt not that's changed everything for her. All right. So what's next for me is to probably just soak up in the goodness of God till I'm not a shriveled sponge anymore and figure out what's next. So my program that I went through is amazing. It's called Merit America. If you know anybody who wants to change career paths, it is highly competitive. So not everybody gets in, but if you would like to change your career trajectory and learn to code or learn IT or learn data analysis, apply for Merit America, because the beauty of the program is they train you and do not charge you for the education until you have a good paying job. So, of course, because they would like to be paid for all of this wonderful education they've given me, they would like to see me succeed and be placed in a job. And so my next steps are to be applying for 5 jobs a week. And so that will probably mean a lot of interviews. And that's what's next for me is now I am job seeking. And so prayers for that would be appreciated because I would like to be placed, and Merit America would like me to be placed, I'm sure. And yeah, also as far as like the writing thing, Teresa gave me a really good suggestion there, and I don't know what will I do regarding the writing stuff because I'm gonna have time like I had before, and I'm gonna feel really weird not having to fill it with homework or
Unless you get a
something.
job tomorrow.
Right. That's
So
always possible. I told the restaurant when we're going into season, I'm like, load me up with hours. So I will be doing that, but that's physical. It's completely not the same thing as this
right.
mental
Like you
stuff I've
said,
been
you're getting
doing.
ideas while you're working, so you could be doing
Mm-hmm.
that's what we call an intellection activity in strengths language.
Mm.
Because your brain can be thinking in the background while you're doing like going for a walk, washing the dishes. I'm probably the same.
This whole episode has basically been about how amazing the brain is. Maybe we should make an official episode about that because it's fascinating. We could put you on some research.
Yeah. You
Teresa
know,
says,
everyone knows how much I'd hate that.
oh, wait, Jason. Jason says he's planning on writing more this week and changing a lot with the story. Good job, Jason.
And
Stick
Piper
with it.
had one right before him.
Oh, her what's next is she's making final changes to the book, banging my head against the wall while I try to get the blurb wrinkled. Oh, blurbs. Blurbs. Oh, Yeah, that's a challenge. Teresa says her what's next is to stay with the manuscript and attempt to get it up to 55K with a minimum goal of 500 words on work days. You go,
Nice.
girl. I know you'll do it. Show up in that sprint room and we'll see if anyone can join you. Catherine Carroll says her what's next is to get back on track with writing now that she's finally getting over the con crud. Oh, bummer. Getting over the con crud and can stay awake more. Yeah, poor thing.
There's a poll
in
the Facebook group for that conference. And you go in and you say whether you got sick or whether you tested positive for COVID. Like there's like 4 different questions, and over 50% of the people that went got sick.
Wow.
Well, that answered the poll.
Wow, and then imagine if you would have went, Tina, and gotten sick, then you wouldn't be around the squeaker. Oh, so yeah, it all worked out.
I call her Squeaker. That's her nickname because she squeaks. Like she'll just be sleeping, she'll be squeaking. It's the cutest thing.
So cute. All right, so I guess that does it, and that will conclude this episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. Until next time, may your pen be prolific, your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye now.
Bye.